or considering relocating out of the US if the regulatory clarity does not improve.
Crypto's dead in America.
It is dead in America.
Crypto's dead in America. I mean, now you had
Game
Gensler.
over.
You had Gensler even blaming the banking crisis on crypto. So the United States authorities have firmly pointed their guns at crypto.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, that intro might have seemed a little bit scary, especially coming out of the mouth of billionaire Chamath Palihapitiya. Now, is Bitcoin and crypto actually dead in the United States? Well, clearly it's not dead, but it's not really looking too healthy, right? There has been a lack of that regulatory oversight, no clear direction on what we're supposed to be doing, people literally asking to have the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, removed, and places like Coinbase and Gemini literally saying that if they can't get this figured out, they're going to just take their business offshore. Lots of things piling up on top of each other, including the fact that we're also seeing countries fighting against the dollar, moving to other sources, even using cryptocurrencies in some cases. So we got to talk about everything that's going on today, as Bitcoin itself is also at a extremely critical level. So all of that today, if that sounds good to you, very good video, by the way. Stick around to the very end. Make sure you watch this video all the way to the end. I do have a little bit of a fun surprise for you. I think you guys are going to enjoy it, on this afternoon. And I think it's going to be a crazy week for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So let's dive in. Let's have a look without further ado. So obviously Bitcoin has taken a hit. Now, we were talking about this level being a very important resistance level. And, we were getting very, very bullish when people were bearish down here. And I knew that this was an amazing opportunity for that accumulation. Now, there is still that possibility that we do break out and maybe we come up to this green zone at around 38,000. I'm not going to rule that out, but also the fact that we have hit this resistance without actually technically coming back and retesting this support, then I do still think that it's on the cards for Bitcoin to maybe still at least come down here, reclaim this upwards trend and also reclaim this right here. That level again puts us at, somewhere between 25,100 and 25,300. You could see how those levels coincide here and here and here. We also have wave edge, going from the green into the purple, and we also have what could be, although we don't have confirmation yet, on the market cipher indicator money flow. And, just drawing a simple line right here, we did in fact get that anchor wave and we got that trigger wave. So there is a lot that is pointing out. And again, looking at where we had this triple threat, we do see again that there is that possibility of coming down and sort of retesting that 200 weekly. So if we do fall below that area, it doesn't really matter to me. We could come all the way down here. That would still be okay. We would be in an uptrend. However, we would fall back below the 200, which you really don't want to do that. That tends to really be the support that you want to tend to stay above. But nevertheless, guys, currently right now, we were talking about how, we were very bullish down here. And now I'm not saying is the time to be bearish. I'm just saying, look at this. We are hitting a very, very major resistance. And we may have to have, that little correction. And sometimes these corrections can take a while, right? We could end up bouncing all the way around here until, even June, right? It's possible. We could go sideways and down until June. And again, that would bore everybody out. And then what would happen? Well, we would come down and then maybe we spring back up again, right? So ultimately right now, not too much to talk about on the charts. If you guys want to trade, make sure you watch the tutorial popping up above. There's over $56,000 in bonuses. Again, not much going on right now. So when we see something major, which we said right here, this was the major area. This, this was to take some profits on your longs. But right now we have to just wait and see. And we are looking for a retest on that level. But what I really wanted to talk about today is how it's getting very bad essentially here in the US. And I really thought that the US is supposed to be a hub, for innovation. And you can see right here, these are just some of the top quotes from this week alone. We have Austin Campbell from Columbia Business School saying, "When I am asked to consult or advise for stablecoin projects, my first advice has now become to avoid U.S. operations and a U.S. domicile. The jobs are going elsewhere. I hope the U.S. is happy that they're pushing things offshore." Down here, we have Brian Armstrong. "I think we're going to have to actually end up going to court against the SEC to get the clarity we need and create the case law." And then, of course, Warren Davidson, "To correct a long series of abuses, I'm introducing legislation that removes the chairman of the SEC and replaces the role with an executive director that reports to the board where the authority resides," right? And now look at this today. Gemini announces that they are forming a derivatives future platform with BTC against GUSD. And guess what, guys? It's going to be a non-US crypto derivatives platform. Why? Because working and trying to literally conduct business in the US is just not possible. And unfortunately, like you saw in the intro, this was a interview. It was sort of just a roundtable talk, all in podcast. And Chamath Palihapitiya, this guy that you're looking at right now, he is a billionaire. He has been very vocal on crypto and Bitcoin, and he is not feeling quite bullish on it at the moment. Here's a short clip of just what these guys were saying during this talk.
SEC obviously sent a Wells notice. We talked about this before, to Brian Armstrong of Coinbase. He said he's thinking about or considering relocating out of the U.S. if the regulatory clarity does not improve.
Crypto's dead in America.
It is dead in America.
Crypto's dead in America. I mean, now you had Gensler. You had Gensler even blaming the banking crisis on crypto. So the United States authorities have firmly pointed their guns at crypto.
Is it a scapegoat, or was it a around find out moment for crypto in your mind, or a little bit of both?
I don't know. I just think that they were probably the ones that were the most threatening to the establishment.
Okay.
And they were the ones that, in fairness to the regulators, did push the boundaries more than any other sector of the startup economy. And yeah, so now they're paying the price for that. The bill has come due for them.
Sachs, is it a around find out moment? Is it protecting the American dollar? Somewhere in between? Or incompetence on regulators' part?
The more I think about it, the more I think it's probably not a coincidence that you're seeing all these concerns about de-dollarization at the same time they're cracking down on crypto. So look, there were a bunch of crypto companies that might have done shady things, but I think we all agree that Coinbase was not one of them. Coinbase was the gold standard in terms of doing everything right. And they've just asked over and over again for a regulatory framework. They're just like, tell us how to operate and we'll do it. So I think Chamath is right that they're effectively banning crypto in the United States. They're going to drive all these companies overseas, which is terrible for American innovation. I don't know exactly where blockchain and crypto are going to go from here, but I think that we should find that out in America. You know, we don't want that innovation going offshore.
You bring up a really good point too. It's just like Coinbase played by the rules, stood in line, tried to do the right things, it seems, at every step along the way, right? Everything from board composition to executive composition to how they tried to interact with the regulators, yet they were probably the furthest away from getting a license. The one that came the closest was the one that was the most fraudulent, which is FTX.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
How is that even possible?
So is crypto actually dead? No, I think he was definitely over-exaggerating in that talk, but it is a good point that they make. And, you know, even if you just look at some of these numbers, 1.7 billion in Q1, according to Crunchbase, which was from venture funding, had plummeted about 82%. Because if we look at Q1 of 2022, it was around 9.1 billion. 1.7 now. Why are so many VC investors getting bearish towards Web3 projects? Well, basically, they say fundraising decline linked to Terra Luna and the FTX collapse. In context, the 1.7 billion invested in the first quarter is the lowest since the fourth quarter of 2020, when Web3 was in its early stages. So, unfortunately, we have these lingering situations like Terra Luna and FTX, which honestly just spooked the markets as is. And then we also, you know, come back over here and we have the SEC basically just trying to make it impossible to operate, forcing places like Gemini and Coinbase and other US-based crypto companies to start looking elsewhere. So this is a big problem. This is bad for crypto, especially in the US. Now, why is this happening? What's the issue? Well, like Secretary Yellen points out, they're worried about what's happening right now with the dollar. She was having an interview with CCN, and she was talking about China, Russia, and Iran finding ways to move away from the dollar after witnessing how the United States used the world reserve currency to impose financial sanctions. Yellen says that while the weaponization of the dollar is a very effective tool in deterring bad behavior on the global scale, it could have the unintended consequence of countries coming together to circumvent the sanctions. It's not just the United States, it's a coalition of partners acting together to impose these sanctions. So it is a very effective tool, of course, but it does create a desire on the part of China or Russia or Iran or others to find an alternative. Now, just pointing it out, Binance is apparently allowing their users to make payments with Russian bank cards for the first time. So I don't know what that's all about. Obviously, I haven't verified that. But again, just to say something before we move on, guys, this is what sort of happened. I mean, so I'm not taking any side. I'm just saying what is going on here. Russia had a bunch of US dollars that they rightfully obtained, right? I don't know how they purchased it. They traded for them. They hoarded them, right? And they kept dollars on their balance sheet. And then the US basically came in and they froze that, right? So, I mean, granted, yes, you are using US dollars, and I understand the point of sanctions, but this is the same fear that people are having about CBDCs. If they can do this to a country, you don't think they could do this to a person? We're going to talk about that in just a bit, but you could see that they say with many of the existing payment channels between Russia and its trading partners handicapped, the country has turned to alternative technologies. The Central Bank of Russia is developing payment gateways to integrate with foreign systems. It is working directly with its counterparts in Turkey in this area. Meanwhile, earlier this year, Russia and Iran began collaborating on an interbank payment network. The CBR is also working on a bill that will introduce an experimental legal regime for cryptocurrencies to be used for international transactions, okay? So basically, this is starting to backfire now on the US. Rather than just crippling these, transactions or whatever, business, you're basically just making them say, no, we're not going to use the dollar. And it's not only just what they did specifically to, Russia and other places, whether or not you agree or disagree. But the message that they sent to the world was, if you don't do what we like, we're going to turn off your money. And that scared the world, right? Robert Kiyosaki was discussing this over on his podcast. And he said, and I'm not going to play the clip because it's a really long interview, but basically he just said the big concern with this Fed coin CBDC is that we lose our privacy, that they'll track us, that they'll track every move because they'll know everything we're spending money on and what we're spending it on, who we give it on. And so it becomes George Orwell's 1984. Big Brother will watch you via our money. That's the problem with the central bank digital currency. I don't want them to know how I'm spending my money, and it's none of their business. In thinking about the implications of CBDC and privacy, we must also consider the central role that money plays in our daily lives and the risks that a CBDC would provide not only a window into, but potentially an impediment to the freedom Americans enjoy in choosing how money and resources are used and invested. Again, getting back to this Gemini thing, well, we're going to have a derivatives exchange, but we can't have it in the US. Why? Oh, because it's considered a form of gambling. Oh, I get it. So we're not allowed to use derivatives, but we could just go to Atlantic City and I could put my entire bank savings on red, 50-50 on the roulette, and just lose it all. But that's okay. That's okay to do that. You just can't be betting on some crypto prices, right? It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You should be able to do whatever you want with your money, and that's my firm belief. But ultimately, if you do believe in what Plan B says here, you could see that he still is looking at this potential stock to flow. $100,000 is the bottom of his range, with the top of his range being around $532,000 per coin after the halving. I do believe that in 2024, we are going to be seeing a higher price. And then, I think after that, we will definitely hit that new all-time high. And of course, then we'll have that correction. But I did just want to kind of end on this. So for everyone who stayed all the way to the end, this is over from Vivek, the Bitcoin Dispatch. And this is sort of a public service announcement, if you will, from the Fed. And in case anyone is actually suffering after buying Bitcoin, finally, my friends, we have an alternative.
Are you or a loved one suffering after buying Bitcoin? Are you fed up with the huge returns on investment? Fed up with all the financial sovereignty and freedom? Perhaps you're annoyed with Bitcoin's level playing field and predictability, or maybe you're just disheartened with its strictly limited supply and constant growth of your purchasing power. Whatever it might be, don't worry. Central bankers have got a plan for you. Introducing central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. It's just like Bitcoin, but without all the freedom, revolution, and financial gain. The idea is simple. Why have control over your own money and life using Bitcoin Bitcoin when you can let an entrenched communist central bank oligarchy control it for you? So what inspired us to create CBDCs? The short answer is, you did. When we looked at all the amazing benefits that Bitcoin brought to people all over the world, like financial sovereignty, freedom, sound money, free markets, and free speech, we thought, wow, the debt slaves are getting a bit too close to stepping off that fiat plantation. We better do something about this. Whilst Bitcoin had a good run, it's time for fresh ideas. And who better to deliver them than the people that hyperinflated and destroyed the current monetary system and global economy? It's time for the adults to take over. And the best thing about CBDCs is they are run by licensed, accredited, and regulated central banks. And central banking is a pillar of communism, and nothing bad ever happens when communists run things. The best thing about CBDCs is they take all the worst attributes of the current monetary system and amplify them. Here are some of the features you can look forward to when using central bank digital currencies. Restrictions on how and where you spend your money. High inflation and loss of purchasing power. Arbitrary and unpredictable monetary policy. Highly censorable. Restrictions on the time in which you can spend your money. Counterparty risk. Negative interest rate policy. Politically weaponizable currencies. Attached social credit score system. Constant surveillance and sharing of your spending habits with third parties. But if that's not enough reason to persuade you, every account opened gets a free travel clock signed by Christine Lagarde. With features this good, I know what you're thinking. Take my money. And believe me, we will. You see, the problem with Bitcoin is that it's just too predictable and boring. Why use a system like Bitcoin where you can predict the issuance and inflation rate of its monetary algorithm hundreds of years in advance, when instead you can just be kept in a constant state of uncertainty on a weekly basis by arbitrary decision-making by a handful of people at the central banks? Another problem with Bitcoin is that it makes things too simple and easy. What's the point in having one neutral platform that's apolitical and provides a completely level playing field on a global scale that can't be gamed by any single nation, when you can have many CBDCs with interoperability issues ran by psychopaths in a constant power struggle with each other? What about the magic money tree, you ask? Well, we've got you covered. With CBDCs, you will still enjoy the unlimited issuance of currency that we can counterfeit at will. Why use a sound money system like Bitcoin, where the amount of Bitcoin is limited, when you can use CBDCs and all become billionaires just like the people in 1930s Weimar Germany? And finally, with CBDCs, there's no reason to worry about corruption. As long as you're politically connected and can afford to pay our ex-central bankers $250,000 an hour to give a speech once they step down, you'll get the same treatment as all the other special interests that use CBDCs. But don't just take our word for it. Listen to all these amazing testimonials.
Without a doubt, the best thing about CBDCs is the integrated social credit score system. Not being able to transact is a great way to remind me when I need my next COVID vaccine, or if I've said something the government doesn't like.
Like most people, I don't like change, and that's why I love CBDCs. Even though people say that Bitcoin can fix some of the biggest problems in the world, to me it just seems like a lot of hard work having to manage my Bitcoin private keys. With CBDCs, things can just stay the same, and I can go back to Netflix and chill.
So what are you waiting for? Join the billions of other subjugated people all around the world and get your CBDC account today. Central bank digital currencies. A breath of fresh despair.
So that's it for me, guys. Again, thank you for coming back to the channel. Hope you enjoyed this content. And yeah, just friendly reminder, again, if you guys do want to go to Bitcoin Miami 2023, it is going to be a blast. Make sure you pay attention if you want to get that ticket now, because obviously, the longer you wait, the more expensive tickets get for flights and hotels and stuff like that. But don't forget, I do have that 10% off if you use the link below. But guys, that is it for me. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow. Hope you're having an awesome day. If you want to learn to trade, make sure you watch this tutorial popping up right here, right now. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.